My name is Maggie Prokopi, and I'm a co-founder from the UK of the WorkPlace Trends conferences. And together with Tushar Mittal, we're putting together some really fantastic content for you coming from India. Tushar is our founding partner in India, and I'm delighted to be working with him. Today we've got some really brilliant speakers for you. Gaurav Chopra from HKS India, Principal and MD of HKS India, is going to be looking after you all today, and he will introduce your panelists, and Tushar is among them. So I will hand over without further ado to Gaurav. Thank you, Gaurav.
Thank you, Maggie. Well, welcome everyone. This is what a fantastic group, and I think I can't help but start it with a quick dedication to the recent, this month has been pretty unfortunate. For things are just getting worse, but I thought we need to lighten up something. So a quick dedication to Rishi Kapoor Irfan. Just as a reminder, we are right in the heart of India, and we got to start the show with some lightening up. And welcome. Thank you, Upali. So what a fantastic group. And I've noticed that I'm told that we have over 725 people registered, and people are logging in and still counting. And I wish this were the stock market, the way it's running. So we have our friends dialing in from the US, and plenty of them would be Upali's friends and relatives and mine. And thank you, Upali, for joining, waking up early. Maggie, thank you so much for dialing in from London. And so we have our registrations from Middle East, of course, India, Southeast Asia, and our friends from China. So, welcome everyone. So in the next 1 hour, I think we're going to make it quite interactive. When we began thinking about when SKV reached out to us, to host a panel session, we had one option that, we'll do the traditional way, or the other option was, let's figure out a way to engage with the audience and keep it a bit interactive. And at the outset, just some housekeeping things. When I got the whole notification of what I can say, what I cannot say on the panel session, besides the usuals that I shouldn't be talking about, of course, cultures, religions, no political information. 3 words that got added there, and which was interesting. It was, I shouldn't be using the words toxic fluids, music in the balconies, or wildlife. And in the beginning, we had just about 150 registrations, and I'm amazed that just adding the word uncensored in our invite, the registrations shot up. So welcome everyone. Talking about innovation, and it can mean a lot of different things to different people. So we thought, let's just humanize. We are surrounded by design in all aspects of life. We've been talking about innovation. We've been talking about how there's research, then there's development happening, and then there's implementation. And innovation has been, we've all seen innovation in different aspects. Something as simple as my friend and his brother just shaved off their head by doing live on Instagram. And every time I walk towards the balcony and saying I'm going, my mom looks at me. You have to see the look on her face when I go to the balcony. Technology is what we were looking at, thinking of as a futuristic technology. I had never thought in my life that we would be celebrating birthdays, weddings over Zoom calls. It was yesterday when my 10-year-old dialing in from US, she was trying to fiddle something on the screen, and I was like, what are you trying to do? And she said, I'm trying to write on the screen. And I said, why don't you use what happened to the good old pencil and sharpener? And she said, come on, Dad, I'm just not used to using pencil and sharpener anymore because my hands are tired. I'm out of practice. And it does get confusing. I will confess, it does get confusing. So we thought, let's huddle up together. So today we have a very diverse group. And thank you, Upali, for joining in. Dr. Upali Nanda, she is our Director of Research at HKS. So welcome, Upali. And thank you so much, Mr. Jairam Panch, for dialing in. Mr. Panch is the managing director for Turner in India, and with several interesting projects to his credit, and he's going to share his thoughts and views about what the future lies in the world of construction management in India. And thank you, Tushar. You know, you're always a double-edged sword. So credit goes to you for putting this whole group together at SKV, and this is I understand your 6th episode of your panel sessions. So this time I thought, why not turn the tables, and you like to stay humble about it generally, but why not have you as a guest and listen to what you're doing in the world of modular construction and interiors, because that's what we are all talking about. So thank you so much. So Upali, I think just to get things rolling, let me set things perspective. Today we have quite an interactive session. So to the audience, we thought what would happen if we actually engage the audience. So you will be seeing some questions on your screen, and with live poll. So we want to make the best use of the live poll. We're going to use the best use of chat, and we want to keep it. When I mentioned during some of our postings on social media, I meant it. We will keep a two-way communication. So the question would go to the panelists as well, and as we keep talking about it, we will get to know about what they do, together, and I'll let them, say a few things about themselves during the course of question. But I do want to ask this question to pretty much everybody in the room, including the audience. Please type it in your chat as well. Right now, talking about innovation, if there was one place in the world that you would rather teleport yourself as opposed to being here on this webinar, where would you be? And I'm going to read out some of those answers. So let's start with you, Upali, while the audience is typing on the chat windows. Type away, guys. Anything. Where would you be in the world and teleport yourself? So Upali, let's start with you. What do you do, and where would you rather be?
Oh, I would go to the mountains.
Okay, and so Upali, can you tell us a little bit about what you do at HKS as a research?
Sure. So I'm the Global Director of Research for HKS and a faculty member at the University of Michigan School of Architecture. My role has always been to oversee our research across the firm. Right now, it's become very much about discovery in this new phase, trying to understand what the pre versus post-COVID world looks like.
Interesting. And Upali, besides the hill stations, mountains, Ladakh, I have, Rajdeep says my mom's place, Allah Hassan says Denver, and Brinda says Goa. Fantastic. Jairam, where would you like to teleport yourself? And tell us a little bit about, what you do and at Turner.
At this time, it might sound a bit serious, but if I were to teleport myself somewhere, I would probably some excellent research lab finding a cure for immediate cure, not a vaccine, immediate cure for where we are right now, for COVID-19. That's what I would probably think. I would probably want to take up Upali's position, for some time, get into research, and that has to be instant. We're used to an instant life. So yeah, I think that's something that we need right now. Turner provides project management and construction management services. We've been active in India for the last 12 years. And we have doing pretty good in the country right now. So yeah, that's pretty much about us.
Interesting. So I'm reading, farmhouse, that would be nice, at my workplace. Ravi, you either have a lot of stock options or, something happened at home. Coffee shop, brilliant. This is very cool. Tushar, where would you rather be? And can you tell us a little bit about what your enterprise is? What do you do? And we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you, Jairam and Upali, to coming on this platform. So honestly, Gaurav, I would like that 40 days away from office. I would like to go back to my office, interact with my people, with my the team leadership, and just re-energize, refocus on the work. But at the same time, if I get opportunity, I would like to to go and sit at the seaside, just think what is happening in this world. Are we the same people, same normal, same everything? I think we are into a new world altogether. So I think it's great challenging time, but interesting time as well. So, and I would like to tell you about my business. We are primarily into interior construction. We do offices, and we do design, build, and since last 1 year with my whole team, thanks to my team, that we are developing a technology and developing a process, systems to how to modularize the whole system from design to execution. The complete landscape should be modularized. It should be. We should not talk about construction, or we should not talk about projects only. We should productize the whole ecosystem. That is a new field of interest. And the workplace trends, this is a new baby for me, and I'm trying to provide the best content in the country, and we are trying to, all the best leaders around the globe in the workspace industry. We are trying to, engage them and try to get the best content for Indian audience.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I'll take a cue from that. So, there are three aspects which are touching, on all of our lives, because in the built, especially in the built environment, one is, of course, things where pretty much whether it is from a home to offices, hospitals, hotels, which are on design boards, and we can pretty much it's our canvas. And the second part is where there are a lot of buildings, construction activities, especially in a country like India or South Asia by and large, in Middle East, India, Southeast Asia, there's a lot of construction activity happening, buildings which are under construction. And the third part, which probably would be very challenging, projects that just got over within the last 1 year. So taking a cue from that, Upali, I have two questions with you. I'll start with you. We'll keep it a bit conversational. How do you think the pandemic has affected our human behavior and the environment just at the get-go? And maybe to build on that, do you think that since you're really in the depth of research, do you think research, and we are talking a lot about data and human behavior, can it help us prepare for future and influence design which surrounds all around us?
Absolutely, Gaurav. I think the last time society as a whole faced something like this was 1918, right? We haven't really faced a global pandemic. This time we are facing it with completely new tools at our disposal. I actually put some slides together that could serve as a catalyst for the conversation. So maybe I can answer your questions with some visuals to support. Would that work?
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. All right. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can. The moment of re-entry.
Perfect. So it's an interesting time, right? Something invisible changed our world in very visible ways. And all of us here are at this moment of re-entry, trying to figure out what it looks like. This is New York, before COVID and after COVID. This is Delhi. You're actually seeing Delhi clearly for the first time in decades. These are train stations. And to me, the most fascinating is how greetings have changed. It used to be like, how many years before we shake hands? What is going to change? You were asking about human behavior. Fundamental human interactions will change. You'll have that moment of hesitation before you reach out to somebody else. Right? And in all of this, we, especially in the design and construction industry, are being asked to look into this crystal ball. What's the future of construction going to look like? What is the future of workplace going to look like? What is the future of retail? What is going to happen to airports? What will business travel look like? Everything that we have in the past done has taken years to construct and deploy, and you're suddenly in this phase where you don't know what the future will look like. So I'll show you an image which I always find very amusing. This is from the cover of Reader's Digest in 1966. This is what they thought 1999 would look like. None of this happened, and nobody predicted social media. And so when we look into this crystal ball, there's always this risk that how far can you really see? Are we asking ourselves the right questions? This is another favorite, like Workplace 2020. There are amazing images. If you just Google from 5 years ago what the workplace will look like in 2020, you'll see incredibly futuristic looking images. No one predicted that the reality will be 6 feet apart. So being in this fortune-telling business, which we have to because we are designers, we are not only trying to predict the future, we're trying to shape the future. And it's a tremendous responsibility. But a prompt perhaps that might help for this discussion and this moment of re-entry is to design not for a faceless future. This virus is something we don't even fully understand. It's called an emerging infectious disease because we're still understanding. We used to think it spread by droplets. Now we know it might be slightly aerosolized. We don't know if we're going to get a vaccine. We don't know if you're going to get a treatment. But if we change the prompt, and if we said we're really designing for an ever-changing present that can ebb and flow as needed, that as our information evolves, our response can evolve as well. That might give us a lot of agency as a profession. Some things, however, have fundamentally shifted. Pre-COVID, I was responsible for my health. Post-COVID, I am responsible for your health. That's a fundamental shift. We were looking at human health and planet health in different buckets. We have seen by some of those very basic human behavior changes that we have made, we have actually improved planet health. It'll be a terrible loss if that lesson is not something we carry forward into our moment of re-entry. And finally, we realized that as important as the footprint is, the cloud print is equally important. This is why all of us are right now on a virtual call and we can connect, right? So trying to understand that for everything you create that has physical space, what does the digital space look like? So that if you have to contract in physical space, you can expand in digital space. Or if you have to contract in digital space, you can come together in physical space. So this concept of footprint and cloud print, something we published maybe 5 years ago, has become really relevant right now. And to your prompt about where is human behavior in all of this, I think that's your lowest common denominator. As much as everything else has changed, our bodies and brains have not evolved at the same rate as, say, technology has. So it may be that understanding the human mind could be the key to the lock that we really don't understand yet, right? The lock we don't see. And there was a great quote from Fast Company that I've included there, that due to the global reach and instantaneous nature of modern media, the fear contagion spreads faster than the dangerous yet invisible virus. And this is something that as designers, we have a lot of agency over. It's not just about how the virus spreads physically, but what the psychological impacts are. We have this moment of calm right now, hopefully. And the question we're all asking is, will it reshape our industry? And I think in many ways, the answer is yes. We are going to see more modularization, but not just because of cost, but because we'll find out that it helps the health of our laborers. The prompt is going to be different. It will no longer be purely business, but we'll understand that human health is a core component of business resilience. And I think we will see, to Jairam's point, a much greater focus on R&D, because we are building things from scratch now. And that's a tremendous opportunity. And if we don't want to be victim to misinformation, if we want to invest in innovation, we are going to see a larger investment in R&D than we have in our industry seen before. It's something that for us as a firm, we've been looking at density, we've been looking at flexibility, construction and delivery, obviously the future of the workplace, and also on very tactical levels, infection control, loneliness and mental health, psychological safety. We put out our findings just on remote work, because if work changes, if you're going to move your workplace to the home, what will you use the office for? And we're starting to investigate that there are certain things that you need to come together for. And so the nature of the workplace will not go away, but the purpose might shift a lot. And that'll be something very interesting to explore with the panel and with the guests we have. 5 lessons that, at least in the last few weeks, we have learned. 1, the power of in-between places. When you can't be out there, but you don't want to be in there, you use thresholds a lot, balconies, open your porches, a way to connect even though you can't physically touch each other. Lesson number 2, density is not the only problem. Density is getting a lot of flack right now. There's excellent data to show that if you look at density in isolation, you will not solve the problem. Even in New York, which has come under tremendous scrutiny, we have found that Manhattan, which is the highest, most dense part of New York, is not the one where there are the most cases. So equity and the social determinants of health are very, very important. Lesson number 3, local is here to stay. We are no longer going into these big supermarkets. I think your kirana stores, your sabji mandis that can social distance very quickly may be one of the biggest advantages India has. Like sometimes when you have big conglomerates, they can't shift as fast. But small neighborhoods in India have been able to have very nice local markets that are socially distant. And you will see this resurgence of local markets. And I think that is going to be here to stay potentially. A big lesson is containment and mitigation rely on systems. As designers, we don't always think about policies and protocols and individual behavior. We have to take a systems approach where issues of building that are very important, access, ventilation, MEP systems, circulation, thresholds, contact surfaces, right? These are tactical things we have to be careful about. But we have to be very sure that policies and protocols support it and that we are very aware of what individual behaviors are. And at the very individual scale, whether it's PPE or whether it's just culture change, we can affect that as well. And finally, and I think this again was the prompt that you set up for me, Gaurav, it really is a lesson that human behavior is the unpredictable variable here. We cannot control what any individual will do unless we understand that deeper. And we've also found that community is the most powerful change agent. But if you bring a collection of humans together and they have a united purpose, which I feel is one of the biggest legacies that COVID has given us, we can make some really powerful change. And then we'll realize it's not that complicated. Things like good sunlight, good quality air, access to food, we are still just finding better ways of getting to those very simple things in life. And I'll end this catalyst presentation, hopefully this helps us with the conversation, with ideas of maybe this is our opportunity to create environments and neighborhoods that are really net positive for both environmental and social health, are intergenerational, are very, very flexible and mobile. And with this quote that I think is a great prompt for our conversation, I'm really looking forward to learning a lot from Jairam and Tushar. And this is a quote from Arundhati Roy, that nothing can be worse than a return to normality. Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It's a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. Hey, thank you.
Thank you, Upali. I'll let a moment to sink that in. About Manhattan's population, it's interesting. It has on the top of my memory, it's from the last data I checked, it's about 27,000 people per square kilometer versus Dharavi that has about 200,000 people per square kilometer. So densities, it's not the density, it's the managing the density part, and that's pretty thought-provoking. Let's, piggyback on that. And I have a question, for our audience here. So Sandeep, can we have our next question here on the poll? So, because talking about managing innovation and I grew up in a culture, I still have a book here called Jugaad. And it's been much talked about, in India. There have been plenty of articles. That's how we grew up. And at the same time, right now, we are at a cusp of investing knowledge, resources, and and technology for true innovation and excellence, aiming for merit. So the question for the audience is, you see it on your screens, the culture of Jugaad or use technology and excellence for innovation, aiming for merit. What do you think do we need to, continue? Does Jugaad work for us? It's been talked about in Ivy League schools, or it's about time that in India we don't accept, we aim for excellence, like in form of true innovation. Please do, select your answers and do not forget to hit submit. You need to select an answer and hit submit, and we'll share the results right away. Thank you so much. And then I'll be gearing it up for another question. So, I'll give about 30 seconds for everyone to select their answers. Sandeep, can we share what we are hearing? Yeah. Oh, land, hands down. I'm a little skeptical with this blue versus red, but interesting. I think pretty straight on. Vinash, I do see that it has to be jagged between jugaad and innovation both. True innovation for it to be sustainable. That's what Akhil says. Interesting, very self-explanatory. And by the way, everyone, whatever is being talked about here, it will be documented, and SKV will issue out a report. So it's. Know that your voice matters. Your voice matters to the industry, and we're going to keep it a live conversation. Then taking a cue from innovation, because there's this design and construction industry is still a very dysfunctional industry in India. Well, by and large in the region, it's no secret that it's the least innovative industry when we compare it with aviation or automobile and so on and so forth. And right now, one of the very sensitive conversations that has been talked about in the country is about the migration of labor back to their villages, and it's been in the media all over, and rightly so. It's a divided house. And Jairam, this is a setup for you with another question. Sandeep, can we have the question on the screen? So could better labor camps and housing for migrant worker close to the sites, could it have prevented the situation that we are all witnessing during the lockdown? And Jairam, this is going to put you in, this is going to be a tough one. But yeah, and folks, we are ready for some provocative questions. So do select and do not forget to hit submit. So I repeat, could the better labor camps, could in-house camps and close to these mega construction sites, could it have prevented the situation of this, what we are facing? What do you think? And let's be realistic about it. I'll give you another 30 seconds to go through it, and then we'll see the results. And Jairam will set you up there. Sandeep, can we have the results? Interesting. So 77%. So, Jairam, how do you think we change the status quo for construction practices in the current scenario? What do you think needs to change?
Thank you, Gaurav. I think that that percentage and that kind of survey really puts us in the right spot of what is really important right now. We need to take care of the people who really help us build buildings. I think that's very important. So as I used to say always, necessity is the mother of invention. And I don't think we are any different in this particular stage. Where we are right now, we are forced to make a lot of changes. We are in a change mindset, and we have kind of embraced it very well. The last 5 weeks, regardless of all the complaints that we might be talking about, or we're not able to go out, meet the people and things like that, as Upali had just shown on the slides, we have a much better planet right now. We're breathing in fresh air. The rivers are not polluted. That's what we are actually giving back to the nature right now. So coming to in terms of how this is going to impact the construction practice, I would probably think more in terms of a short term and a long term. The first thing that's going to impact as soon as we are able to open up, or as we are going through right now, is the impact on the schedule. Almost every construction project is going to be delayed. They have to reset, they have to reprioritize. They will have to look at all the sequence of works. They'll have to look at the workfront availability. And right now, what has happened is we have lost the best 3-4 months right now when it's summer and construction really happens all over the country. So, and we're going to hit the monsoon by the time we are probably able to lift the lockdown. So, preparedness for the monsoon, and effectively when we can really restart the works. So, I think that impact on the schedule is going to drive us find better solutions. As I said, we need to look at the overall schedule, redo the whole schedule, reprioritize areas, 7-day work week. Most importantly, we need to look at also the supply chain. The supply chain is disrupted right now. How can the supply chain be strengthened, and how is it that you're able to support whatever recovery program that you're going to bring? So these are all the challenges that we are talking about. Unfortunately, at this point of time, we have more questions than answers. It's an uncertain world. Therefore, we still are keeping with kind of working out options and say if it happens in May, if it happens in June, figure out what it is. The other thing that's going to be a new normal, or how we are going to look at in the as we open up, would be is the cost impact. Needless to say, schedule has got a cost impact. Cost has to be looked at the idling of equipment, labor. There is going to be a massive revisit of the contingencies. Every project has got a certain amount of contingencies, but right now where we are, it's kind of going way beyond. So I think in terms of short-term impact, those are the stuff. And one thing that the survey pointed out, which I would like to slightly elaborate, is on the workmen. Lot of major sites, be it within the city and more outside the city, they have captive labor camps. So this entire COVID-19, what kind of brings it to everybody's attention is how can we improve the health, hygiene, sanitation, almost everything, cleanliness. There's a cultural difference in India in terms of how people behave, especially workmen. It's not just the roof that you have and a place to sleep. It goes beyond that. So we are talking about physical distancing. We are talking about masks. We're talking about temperature screening. We're talking about so many things. So these things are going to be the new normal. So, but I think that's good. That's why I say we have not really taken care of the workmen. And it used to be, okay, we'll take care of them. We'll provide them all the best of benefits. I think this is a perfect situation where we can kind of reset and really move forward. Now, those are pretty much what I can think of short term, but in terms of the long term, as much as we say that we are going to create these opportunities for the workmen, they're going to stay. I still feel that I would say within the next 8 months, 1 year, there will be a shortage of workmen available for the construction sector. It is going to happen. So we are talking about a lot of migrant workers returning back to the respective states where they are coming from. States are facilitating that. So there is going to be an issue. Even though the best of facilities that we create, they would like to go back home, see their families, be with them and things like that. Now, the other long-term impact that can happen and that will happen is we're going to have a better contractual document put in. That's going to be the need. There are several contracts, be it the mid-size or even a small size, which does not have a proper document which gives the ability for either party to take care of the situation like this. So I think all those things, it's going to work a lot. And from the overall delivery perspective, I think the long-term impact I feel is there is going to be a lot of focus on pre-construction and pre-planning, which so far has been a bit diluted. We try to push a lot of major decisions into the construction stage. I would think that this is going to be a game changer in terms of how we can look at, completing the design, taking the right decisions, making sure that we don't procrastinate, and the ability to do all these things. So I think the long term, be it short term, I see it as really a positive change. It is our ability to bounce back, and whatever we are trying to do right now, putting all the thoughts together, I think the entire country, entire world has come together and share all the best practices, what we can do. So it's not a country's problem, it's a global problem. We are all in it together. We all need to come out of it together stronger, and probably with a vengeance, we will all fight back. And I think that's what human behavior is all about.
Interesting, Jairam. So I'm tempted to make you a little bit quizzy. Do you think post-pandemic, would there be any impact on your current contracts and work orders post-pandemic?
Absolutely. In terms of contracts, be it consultants, be it contractors, as I said before, everybody is impacted. There is a lot of research and talk going about, and also a lot of legal opinion on force majeure clause or doctrine of frustration and things like that. How is it that we can invoke? Typically in the Western world, the first thing that everybody would have done, I'm sure, is within the first 3 days of whatever that has happened, lockdown, you immediately shoot a letter back to your client and make sure that your rights are preserved. A lot of parties in India have also done that. But my suggestion would be is at the end of the day, we need to just sit across the table, negotiate, find a solution. As much as we are helpless as consultants or contractors, and I think the owner was also helpless. So it's easy for us to kind of invoke a clause and say that we need to do that. In certain contract languages, we have force majeure, which really helps. But force majeure to a large extent helps us in time extension. It may not help you in cost. Right now, the impact for a contractor or a consultant is not everything. So I think we all need to share, we all need to come together, and we all need to figure out that's the best way. So the last that we would expect, especially in India, is India going to the pros. Thankfully, we are not very litigious in nature. That's what really helps us, so that we are still more relationship based. We want to go back and talk to our owners and make sure we're able to do that. But I think the last that we want to knocking the courts. Supreme Court has got a huge backlog. All other courts have got severe backlog. I think that's not going to work. So it's like alternative dispute resolutions, mediations, so many other things that opportunities that are there. We need to take the truth, make sure we are able to have all those things done. Going forward, definitely, as I mentioned, we need to have strong protective language. I think insurance is another big issue that will kind of kick on. Insurance will never be the same again. So there are lessons learned for everybody. So, but definitely, I think we all need to come and work together, make sure that we all find out solutions to the problems. That's pretty much what it is.
Thanks, Jairam. I'm sure lots of us will be going back to our negotiation tables, but I am very litigious. I think I would like to invite you to the society that I live in, and then you may see a different picture. But thank you. I think that was pretty interesting. So that leads me. So we'll really have to think out of the box, be more patient and resilient towards each other. And time, I'd like to ask the audience here, because I feel that we are onto inventing something. Not too long ago, just a few weeks before the lockdown, I was in my office. We had about, our entire company, we are open for business, like 1,500 people working from their homes. We did not skip a beat. And I was standing in our office, 10,000 square foot here in Gurgaon, and we are online, and I'm looking at this empty space. And it definitely, and I'm thinking in my mind, where can I save costs? Where can I make ourselves more efficient, and so on and so forth. Anyway, so talk about innovation. Sandeep, can I have the next question on the screen for the audience? And that's something for the chat. In the last 30 days, since the lockdown, what is it that one most innovative thing that you have either seen or heard of ever since you're all stuck at your homes around the world? Pretty self-explanatory. Please do type your answer in the chat window and hit submit. Well, you won't have to hit submit. So again, what is that one? It could be anything. Like for me, it was pretty interesting that I couldn't have thought before that we could use the 3D printers in our office to print the kind of a band, and that had a plexi sheet or a plastic sheet and could be used as shields. So the most fascinating one, I had my neighbor, because I saw videos of it, I had my neighbor actually use a drone to send beer to my house. So that was, I thought, pretty cool. So it could be anything. Please do type your answer in the chat window. And one most innovative thing, either that you have seen or you have heard of. Interesting. So I'm seeing circuit breakers, work from home, of course, webinars, social distancing norms. Okay, we want innovation. What was the one most innovative thing? Oh, touch-based door hardware. I'd like to know of that. I know of one company. It's one company that I know of. There, you can control your entire lock system through your cell phone. Virtual reality for holding events. Oh, you got to drop me a message on that. It'll blow your mind with what the sporting world is thinking about right now. Okay, interesting. So from that, Tushar, I'm going to set you up because, as an entrepreneur, this is for pretty much everybody. Day zero, we're all sitting at our homes, and day one, it's going to happen on either soon after May 3rd. Upali in several US states is going to be this weekend. And so Tushar, how do you think your organization or organizations such as yourself need to prepare themselves to come back to business as usual, if there were a usual?
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you, everyone. I would like to just, before we jump to my question, I would like to say that, I think my answer is related to that. Before this pandemic, we all were thinking, and the thought process was worldwide that India has a more priority for other things than human life, and the rest of the world, like maybe US or UK, everybody has more importance to human life compared to money. And today, when after 40 days, the world is talking about that India has the most importance for human life compared to economy. Our leadership, complete leadership has shown that in India, the human life is more important than any other aspect. And if you look at the economy size or economy situation right now, we can't have this kind of thrust in our economy. We have so many levers. You see, like as Jairam has already answered about the construction sites, and then multi-million people are on the road. But still, leadership has decided to go with the human life, not the economy. So fundamentally, what I'm just coming to answer is that what is important for our businesses to come back to work is, I think the most important thing is priority for people's safety and continuous engagement. I think as Jairam has already focused about that, if the labor camps would have been on the site, what kind of situation we would have seen. I think in India still, like the construction project, Jairam, I think you will agree with me. Like the planning would be due, and the execution would happen is there is a bit of lag because sometimes financial trends, there are some uncertainties, there are some government approval. So I think having that kind of labor camp on the site and saving this kind of situation, I think there is a huge debate can be done. But fundamentally, if you see till today, there is no case pan India you have seen that any labor or working on construction site has contributed to this this pandemic. Reason being, it is not about having labor camp or not labor camp. It is about the planning. I think Jairam, you will definitely agree with me that the process in the Western world is very much planned. People give time to the planning and then execute. In our case, like I think we give very less time to planning. And I think in this COVID situation also, government, authorities, companies, all together, if they plan better, the results can change as of now also. So coming back to my question, which is very important, that I think safety of human being, safety of your employees, how they will be coming, how the offices will be sanitized, how you plan that, who will sit where so that, the social distancing norms are met, who will be coming in one shift, who will be coming in next. I think these kind of planning has to be done, very importantly. And I think reshaping your strategy or business continuity. Before 22nd March in India, people were working in a very different tangent altogether. If you ask your client, then please come, I'm a service provider, please come on video call, I want to discuss something with you. People will not take it in the right way. They will say, hey, come to my office, let's discuss over here. But your service provider might agree to come on video call. Today, the entire world will be working in a reverse fashion. Your service provider will be, ready to come or not come, but the client will be saying, hey guys, look, don't come to my office, let's have a Zoom call. Let's have a, so everybody is, I think, to the first answer which I've given, is thinking about people's safety, thinking about employees' safety. I think this is the most important part, gonna be in new normal. And I think important is, like, as Jairam has said, supply chain management. I am also a contractor. I am doing a lot of 25 projects were happening before this 22nd March. Like what we are doing at this time, my leadership is talking to all relevant stakeholders. I would say that everybody should talk to their client, their vendors, their partners, their manufacturers, their machine operator, or maybe vehicle operator. If you are not in continuously touch, somebody else will take your resources. So I think because after this COVID situation, the important is who has better resources, who has the best resources. The loyalty of resources will make a very, very huge, I think, importance to the situation. And as Jairam said, that the negotiation, I would again say that in India, I will not focus on the large businesses, large contracts like metro or airport, but the small, where both the stakeholders, like the owners or maybe people are involved. There are a lot of sentiments attached. You can't send a notice to your client that, hey guys, look at the situation and I need this much money extra right away. No, this can happen in US. In India, there are so many sentiments attached to people. So first you need to make a connect, communication and conversation. And post, I think everybody is in the same boat. Your client is somebody's service provider. Your service provider is somebody's client. So we all understand each other's problems. So the better communication and having an empathy between stakeholders will be very important. Empathy is the word which I think we should take away with us. It is not sympathy. It is about empathy. That I'm not writing a notice to you to just give me the more price. I'm just requesting you, this is the situation. I'm having the extra cost. I'm having extra issues. I need to depute more resources. Please help me in this situation. This is my personal opinion. You can counter that. And the thing is, I think maximizing use of government support system and policy. It might be Setu app or it might be any, we see every day 3 or 4, WhatsApp where this regulation from Haryana government, this regulation from Noida, or this regulation from Maharashtra. As a business owners, we have to plan holistically. What is most important in this situation? We should not break the law. We should not avoid any situation which is mandated by some government and later on we get into some trouble. So I think, and apart from that, the sanitization, hygiene, health, we should help the government and we should follow the government right now. I think we should not do anything unnecessarily jugaad or innovative which can backfire. And the important thing is, build resilience and preparation for the new normal. I think this is very, very important for me, Gaurav, that in India especially, if you see that very few people were having the video conferencing facilities in their office, and that mindset, that attitude to negotiate, discuss, training, schooling. When you say this thing before 22nd March, everybody was, oh my God, this is not something serious. That's why people are coming on, video conferencing. And people are giving you, e-classes. But today, when you will go back to your office, trust me, 80% of things will be sorted on, online. You have to trust your employees while they're working at home. There's no choice. As an employer, you don't have any choice. For many more months, people will be working virtually. People will be working and you have to build a lot more trust with your employees. You have to build a lot more, kind of relationship based, conversation with your employees. As well as I think the whole infrastructure, whole ecosystem will behave differently. We will be in a new normal and we should all ready for that. Okay, well, Tushar, you know what, I'm going to shake things up a little bit because you gave me my cue points on, and I've been reading these comments, but two of the very interesting ones in terms of innovation is, one is the cops using innovative methods, in India too, and we've all seen those videos and I couldn't stop laughing about it. But the other one is Arogya Setu, this contact tracing. We know, we all three had fireworks around this conversation last night when we were talking about today's. So Upali, this contact tracing through Arogya Setu, the app that we developed here, versus in US or in the West with the privacy issues and things like that. What's your, and the disclaimer is these are just personal opinions. You won't be held against it, so please open up. But by the way, before we go there, I would ask the audience, please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A. You see a little tab right in the middle, somewhere around there on your devices. Because the chat window, I want to keep it open for the comments, but we have some more questions coming up. But please do use Q&A and do not hesitate to be fiery. Just be civilized, but don't hesitate to be fiery. So, Upali, what do you think? I would like to have to listen to each one of you about this whole contact tracing, privacy, Arogya Setu, and the risk and opportunities here. What's the risk and what's the opportunity?
So, Gaurav, one of the reasons I mentioned the power of community is because in countries like US, where individual privacy trumps everything else, right? And the freedom of the individual is the most important thing. It becomes very tricky. And it's important to know that there is nothing we should do in this period that questions more fundamental things like civil rights. And so I think it's a very fair ethical dilemma that we're going through. But where we see it, if you volunteer the information, if you are able to give the information without threat, then you understand that you can get the contact tracing information very quickly, you can contain it. One of the things I had written in terms of innovation was this use of circuit breakers. Singapore has been very effective in creating circuit breakers in different zones, right? The hotspots where you know the virus is spreading, you quickly turn off that circuit, and you might turn off that circuit in terms of physical distancing and keep them connected in digital space. And then you identify, okay, who's the person, how do you trace that? If you can contact trace without infringing on individual privacy, it would be amazing. Unfortunately, we're not at that point yet. So it's a very fine balance that governments are running right now or trying to walk on. I think Tushar's point is spot on. Like, India has shown tremendous mobility and mobilization of some of these tools and resources, but it's also because Indians as a community have come together to support it. And every country and every region is going to have to find something that works for them. Even though it's a global problem, it's going to need a local, regionalized and contextualized response. And that's, I think, very, very important. So with contact tracing in the US, it may be a much more volunteer-based thing, and it may be that we actually speed up testing first, which is what we are seeing happening right now. But as a design profession and a lot of corporations internally are making sure that industries are able to come around and give their employees that agency to contact trace themselves and to really share that information on a volunteer basis.
And then, what does it do to think concepts like open offices? And Tushar, I'm going to ask you the same question, but I'll let Upali finish your thought. So, what does it do to things like open office, to transparency and things like that?
We're actually working a lot on that research right now. And I'm going to echo a lot of what Tushar said. I don't think the open office is going to go away, because the reason open offices came into being, it was, yes, a lot of it was driven by real estate optimization, but it was also about collaboration, about coming together socially, about really getting human contact. You'll see a shift in how those open offices are. But once you understand the basic science of how the virus spreads, which we kind of do now, you're just going to see more emphasis on contactless. You'll see more emphasis on managing airflow, circulation, thresholds, so that you are tested or screened before you come in. And there will be changes. There'll definitely be changes in terms of occupancy density. But I think flexibility is the answer. And what you will see is a shift to flexible work approaches, where people will be given individual agency. You want to work from home, work from home. If you don't want to come in, don't come in. If you need to come in, and really interact safely. You'll have this ecosystem of choice, which we always should have had. I think flexible work, we are seeing that it increases productivity. There are people who spend 3 hours commuting. Those 3 hours being spent on being able to work remotely is a huge advantage. But now you can come to the office and really use it for ideation and use it for socialization, things that we really need, where we have to come together as a group, while really leveraging flexible work as a philosophy. And that's not something we've done before. We've always had the opportunity to do it. We've always had the technology to do it. We haven't had a consistent driver like we have today. And so we will see flexible work become the anthem across workplaces. And I think workplaces will see certain shifts, but I don't think we're going back to cubicles in private offices. Mm-hmm. That would be taking us back 30 years. Tushar, okay. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, so I think, Gaurav, am I allowed to answer?
Yes, sir, you are. So, I'm glad somebody's asking me.
Thank you. So, Upali, I totally agree. There will be a new normal, there will be flexibility. And I think, the one word which in Indian, I will talk about Indian context. I think trust building between employer and employee. will be experimented. Earlier we were talking about, let's trust each other. Today the God has given opportunity to trust each other already. 1 month is already gone, time is going on. So fundamentally, we have to trust each other, and trust is building the bridge between technology or human. Earlier, I think we used to tell our kids that, or like friends, that get away from the technology. And technology is the new vehicle which is connecting us today. We are away, but we are connected to technology. So one very important thing which is coming about offices, because I am a service provider, a lot of people are calling me. We have to see country-wise. In US, if you see, there are a lot of spaces given for as a per square feet space, versus India, it was already half or lesser than half. So today, new environment, as TCS has said that 25% or 30% employees will be working from home. Okay, so the occupancy will be lesser because of the people will be working from home. But immediately, if you see, there will be a big drastic shift in the approach. I see very less happening like that. But here's the larger company like Facebook, Google, or that sort of world, those who are driving their culture from US, definitely there will be some changes. But very important thing, Gaurav, which we have to understand over here is, in India especially, there are MNCs which are driving from US or UK. There are two kinds of business cases, business environment is there. One is for the head office employees, or for the back office employee. So if you see in India, there are a lot of outsourcing centers are there. Will those companies change the norms for the outsourcing centers also? That will, I think, will be a very, very important thing. And I hope there will be little change, but not too much change will happen.
Okay, then I'm gonna use that for a question for the audience, because we are talking about the vernacular. I'm shy of using the word traditional or futuristic, like what we've been talking about. Sandeep, can I have the next question? So going forward, which way would the audience, this goes out to everybody out there, would you opt for? The vernacular methods of sustainable living, this actually is a real conversation that I've been having at my home over dining table, where we're talking about organic farming practices, good old practices that used to happen. I'm just talking about practices, or the futuristic lifestyle using technology or super track driven, where I'm having growing vertical green walls, indoor agriculture, and things like that. So you see a question on your screen. Please select an option and do not forget to hit the submit button. So it'll be interesting, because we ended up having a heated argument over this one. So I'll give you 30 seconds. Meanwhile, Jairam, what do you think of how construction industry is going to change in terms of we've been talking about, I've been reading some comments and I've seen some of those in the West with robotics, drones. Now it's a very tricky situation now in context to the vernacular or the futuristic, because as much as technology is playing a role in streamlining the processes or how we handle or using innovation, how we handle our job sites. And I can go on and on, versus in India, in a dynamic situation like India, and I can speak for that even for Middle East, where labor plays a very intense role. We are creating employment. It's a sensitive thing. How do you see the balance between the two happening? On one end, I need labor on my job site for building 1 million square foot. At the same time, I'm trying to leverage on the technology. How does that balance work?
I think it has to be, it's not that one size fits all. We have to embrace technology. A lot of things happens in the research world, which takes time to really enter into the industry arena. It takes a long time. I'll just give you an example of, say, 3D printing. 3D printing is something that we probably heard it even 6, 7, 8 years back. And then we had a prototype done in Dubai. And then we had something else that's being done in various parts of the world. It has not really, gone into the, what I call it as mass production, where it can be used. If somewhere it could be used much better, and we are able to figure out to use that word jugaad, I would probably think we need to use it for the affordable housing in India. So we have to embrace technology. I think that's not the answer, but as much as we are trying to do it, we know that the construction in India is very, very labor dependent. and that's not going to change in the foreseeable future. So we can try to optimize the labor. I think the key answer would be we always have this challenge on all our project sites. And we discovered that I think the best way to have an edge is how can we improve productivity. So improving the labor productivity is what we think is an answer right now. Why do we need 2,000 people on a job site? Why can't it be just 1,000? If you go through the metrics of productivity, then you would find out that if someone is working for 10 to 12 hours, effectively is engaged for about 6 or 7 hours. So the productivity is not yet really there. And I think those are very important. And I think hopefully this is presenting an opportunity for us to look at creative solutions. As I said, necessity is the mother of invention. We always keep thinking about it. And people think that, once this situation kind of ease out, it's going to increase the cost. I don't think so. I think we're going to really optimize the cost. We're going to really fine-comb ourselves. It will be everybody looking at it and say that, why can't we do it this way? There will be a larger stakeholder participation in the whole thing and say that let's do something wherein we can all come together and contribute. I feel that, I don't know whether I'll be proved wrong, but I'm just saying, I think everybody should come together and work. And that's what it is. And vernacular, I'm an architect myself, so I support, from a sustainable standpoint, it's important. It's a very difficult question to answer. So you would try that line depending upon where you're practicing and what kind of building that you're doing, typology that you're doing makes an impact. If you're in a city, a modern environment, and you want to use certain things, so you go with that flavor, as opposed to you doing a resort or a countryside or, the kind of, what you want to deliver and how you want to, make a status or a symbol. There's going to be a difference. But I think we have to embrace technology. Technology must happen. And right now we are in this world of digitalization. Let's look at it. What are we doing right now? Holding webinars and things like that. When we are in this digital world, one thing that we have learned last 30 days, 40 days is just we've started to kind of like the digital world right now. And we can't live without it, right? So I think that's what I would think.
I like the term webinar population, and the non-webinar population out there. So, but what do you think? This is a question that several of us would be tempted to ask, whether I'm planning to do a 5,000 square foot home or versus 5 million square foot office space. What's going to happen to construction costs in the foreseeable future? I wish you have the crystal ball. What's your personal opinion?
Construction costs in the near future will increase. I can tell you right away, for the next 6 months, we will see this increasing for a variety of reasons. First of all, the supply chain is disrupted. When I say the supply chain, it is not just the vendor that we have. It is the entire ecosystem of supply chain. We need to have the factories running. We need to have transportation working. We have interstate connectivity issues right now we are talking about. We are talking about global issues right now. So I think there is going to be this disruption will impact the cost in the short term. It will kind of flatten out probably after 6-7 months. But most importantly, this is an opportunity for many clients to go and search for innovative solutions. Why can't we do this way? Why can't we look at alternative sourcing of materials? Why can't we look at alternative technologies? Why can't we make this change to the design? All these things are going to be asked. So I'm sure architects are going to be really engaged right now to really start thinking differently. And they have to seriously participate in the cost, because one of the challenges that we face in the building industry is buildings are not designed to cost. Buildings are designed and cost comes later on, and then we figure out. That's not the right way to do. Buildings have to be designed to cost so that the materials are chosen that way. Standardization happens that way. We take enough cognizance of weather and limitations and restrictions and all the stuff, constraints that we have in industry. That's the way planning needs to be done. I think all these things will probably start engaging architects more into not just from the design point of it, making it very, cost effective and trying to participate more in the overall delivery process. I probably see this change.
Which basically means we have to really get us under the skin of the service provider and the service recipient. So that said, guys, we can all see the results of the poll. What a split house. Vernacular 53%, futuristic 47%. It's pretty, well, it's I would still say close compared to what we had seen earlier. So Upali, I'm going to throw this to you, towards you, that, looking at, you've done some extensive research on human behavior, and looking at what you see on your screen, what would be your advice be for those of us who are connected with the design world, for the crystal ball that you saw in the future? Maybe you have a version of Reader's Digest that we don't. So what's your counsel?
Gaurav, what is the exact question? I'm not sure if I see
It's about what would your advice, looking at the poll results, with this, between vernacular and futuristic, and based on your research on human behavior, what would your advice be to the designers out there, or people connected with the design world, about how do we design workplaces or spaces for the future? Not necessarily just workplaces, sector agnostic.
And I think we're going to have to focus a lot more, like our research right now has started looking at work modes. What is the type of work you're doing? What work can really be done remotely and better? So for example, for focused work, you might choose to work from home. For collaborative work and idea generation, you need to really brainstorm with other people, so you need to be there. Obviously, manufacturing work, you need to be on site, construction work. So Jairam raised a very key point about improving labor productivity. And I think that's a key component, that we have this opportunity to really understand what work are you doing and how can you be most productive in doing it, and really believe that your individual health and well-being will improve that productivity. Right? That's kind of the premise here. So if we really think about that, and I say, why am I wasting time in commute? If I can get that time back, those 2 days a week, I can actually work from home, and I can get so much done for my focused work. 3 days a week, I'm going to come into office. It's that AB kind of flexing of the schedule that Tushar was mentioning. How many people need to come in at what time for what purpose? We have for too long thought about work as this big blanket solution for everyone. It is not. It depends on the work you're doing, the project you're on, the team you're with, and then you figure out what's the best way to do it. And I think that's the flexibility that we're going to seize. So a lot of the solutions that were actually mentioned on the chat screen are excellent. If we can improve circulation and flow, that will help. If we can really control contact, like figure out where you leave traces and make that contactless, that's really simple. If we follow basic principles, it'll be really simple in terms of how the workplace can really control this infection. I worry about things like antimicrobial materials, new lighting systems. Innovations will come out of the woodwork right now. And the biggest opportunity is innovation. The biggest risk is misinformation.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly the moment we're in, right? That everybody is going to say, you're going to have to be very careful about saying, why will antimicrobials help me with the virus? What does that coating actually do? What is the science behind what you're getting in front of me? So if you ask me to say, what are the 2 words we have to hold on to with our lives? It would be empathy and evidence. Those are the 2 things we have to hold on with our lives. You have to be very empathetic. I absolutely agree that relationships are what build resilience. That's really important, but you also have to be very critical, think, why should I trust this new idea? What's the science behind it? What is it going to do? What do I really, really need? For what purpose? And so the workplace innovation that we're going to see is we're going to finally figure out that not every worker is the same. Not every worker is doing the same type of work. Not every group dynamic is the same. And as you start looking at that, you'll be able to have even more creative workplaces, which you can, again, offset with the right policies and processes on one end, and a lot of culture and communication on the other. And in all of that, to that debate between vernacular and futuristic, it may be that vernacular is the new future, but it will be with technology. Taking a mistake if we go back 10 years. I think there's a hybridization that needs to happen on what does it really mean.
I think
and I don't know if on the supply chain side, for example, local sourcing of materials, is that going to become more relevant? When you look at supply chain, it's local sourcing is a very vernacular idea, but it's a high-tech thing as well, right? So I think it's our traditional definitions of things might have to change a little bit.
I think that's very well put, considering, I do want to acknowledge today's May 1st being the International Workers' Day, so you couldn't have articulated it better. I have the last question for the audience. We've just gone a little over the hour. And if taking a cue from, what we just heard from Upali and the poll that you guys did, if cost were no hindrance, Sandeep, can I have the question on screen? If cost were not a hindrance, and I was confused about using what would be the most appropriate word, cost, resources, or price. Price is what we pay, and resources could mean even natural resources. So cost would be an appropriate negative word. If cost were no hindrance, what would be that one thing that you would want to leave as a legacy for your next generation? Please type your answer in the chat, and do not hesitate. What would be that one thing, if cost were no hindrance, that you want to leave something for your kids, for your near and dear ones, as a legacy for the next generation? I'll give you a moment to just go through it, and that's pretty much the final question, and we're going to talk about it. Wow, look at the answers. A greener world, clean air, safety, health, pure air, and time for a lot of introspection. Garden of trees, better earth in better state. It's a hands down consensus, with no question about it. So how do we, I'm going to throw the floor for questions.
Gaurav, I would like to add one thing, what Upali has said. I think, the evidence is very important. If you see today, the world is full of information. If you look at the KPMG or EY or any damn, consulting firm is coming up with, a hell lot of information. And yesterday I was, moderating one panel with, 3M. And a lot of questions being asked, Upali, to your knowledge, like, that micro, antibacterial films and all. And, I think people are guessing a lot, that what should be happening, what is to do with the virus. And I think in current scenario, Upali, I think we should write this as a takeaway, that empathy and evidence are the two things, which is very, very important. One thing, Gaurav, before you jump to Q&A session with the people, I would like to say that India is still evolving. Jairam can support me on that. The modularization in the construction is very, very important. If you look at the US, UK, people have started, precast slabs, precast, housing, precast, migrant technology. When I was in my, training days in my college, I did training on the migrant technology in Bombay. It was like 2002. Since 2002 to 2020, not much has changed in the construction industry because of the cost or because of whatever the reason it is. So I think since last 1 year, I would like to add over here that we are working on productizing the whole interior space. We are generally people say that interior is one field where a lot of people are, the key factor. That if the 300 people are there, the project will happen in early or you can expedite the project. But I feel I think the better planning and productizing the whole project mindset is the key to success. We have a very large factory to just experimenting that how can we modularize the whole approach. Not only the construction, not only the furniture, not only the joinery. It is about the design thinking also.
Right.
How you productize your whole design process. It is like how you select components instead of a large drawing. You show it to your customer and customer is clueless. What should I see in this drawing? Such a large drawing, going to A4 or A2 size, we don't know what to see. But if you show components, show product to them, and I'm sure that customer will also appreciate that. So I think I totally agree with Upali that I think the whole approach has to change. The whole process has to change, and we have to go from project to product. So project to productizing. that is my.
So thank you so much, Tushar. So I'm going through some questions, and so I'll have to at the outset apologize. We're trying to club up several questions into one, and in the 16 minutes that I'm left with. So Jairam, I'm going to put this one towards you. If we can combine, because there are several connectors here. I can see that. One is, do you think we are ready for, because I'm aware of several incubation programs that you have going on at Turner. Credit goes to what you guys did, leading Burj Khalifa and the statue of in Gujarat of Liberty, and not Liberty, the statue, Sardar Patel statue.
Statue of Unity.
Statue of Unity. Thank you. And do you think prefabrication is something that we are ready for? And how does that change the culture? Prefabrication, automation, and working. How do you see working from home happening in construction management industry?
First is prefabrication. We are ready. The reasons, I think we have been ready even many years back. It was primarily because of all this taxation and so many other stuff that was there. Product coming from outside is being taxed separately as opposed to product that's being made inside. So I think there was not enough clarity on that. That was the reason why it's not really pursued much. But definitely precast, prefab, there's a difference between both. There is enough opportunity in the typical building industry that we are in, be it residences, be it commercial, be it retail space. Definitely we can do that. And we must do that. Talking about modular that Tushar pointed out is bang on, because it's all about modular. It really helps us in construction. One of the challenges that we face as project managers is how do we really take the design and make it quickly constructible? That's where the challenge is, and we have to kind of, a lot of interaction comes with the architects, and it's not just to dilute the design, but making them understand that, we are trying to do something which is more effective. At the same time, we still maintain the design intent. So this calls for something that we need to do right at the design stage: standardization of elements. It could be curtain wall, it could be block work, it could be panels, it could be several other things. Why do we need to have 25 types of door types? Why do we need to have 30 types of window types? You need to start thinking about it, how we can standardize it. I'll give you some examples in the West. What happens in a typical hotel industry in the West? It's fairly simple design. It's more modular. And you follow the gypsum partitions and things like that. And the construction is very fast enough. What happens in India when you come to a 4-star and a 5-star, there's a lot of wow element that we need to focus on. And it goes into all the interiors, decoration. It's a lot of wet trade. Let me put it very clearly. The more we are able to eliminate the wet trade, and India, we are not great in wet trade, let's be very honest. We are better off doing more of dry trade so that we are able to produce leak-proof buildings. So the less wet trade and more we are able to get into all the other stuff that the technology is able to provide, we have to embrace it. I think one of the challenges is always the cost. Just say, oh, it's expensive. Oh, it's this. So we have to find solutions. That's where people like Tushar come in and say that, can I do it this way? Can I do it differently? And the more you're able to fabricate off-site, Gaurav, there's a lot of things that you can do on-site while things are happening. Like the structural steel building, while you have the concrete works and the structural steel is happening outside, prefabricated, we bring it here. That's what happened. So when you're talking about Statue of Unity, one of the biggest takeaways that we had as the concrete works were going on. We had the course getting done, but we had the structural steel that was getting done. It was being cut to pieces, shipped to the site. It was all getting ready. And then they were really ready, and we had the cranes in place to take it up. So this entire sequencing of off-site, on-site, bringing them together, it really works. The last point on working from home, it's a challenge in the construction industry. It's possible for designers, it's possible for back of the house work that we have, but in construction it's all about touch and feel. So you have to go to the site, we will have to look at it, we will have to see, it could be aesthetics, it could be supervision, it could be logistics, whatever we have to be there. So as far as the construction supervision is concerned, to a certain extent we could do that, but I don't think that will be a very safe way and that would be a 100% perfect way of doing it. But we have to strike a balance. I think the key word is strike a balance. To the extent that we can, we do from work from home, but construction primarily is on-site. Needless to mention, the other thing is client's acceptance of work from home, or we call it work from anywhere. I don't think it's going to be there. I don't think it's there with many of the clients that we can talk about, because they like to see the boots on the ground. They like to see the physical presence. And many places we get paid only when we submit the biometrics, So I think that is not going to change much as far as the project management and the delivery process is concerned. But definitely as designers like Upali and whatever you guys are doing, I think absolutely it's possible. And as she said, only if you need to collaborate, you need to come. You need to focus, be at home. You can probably focus better. You're able to come out with a better design. So I think somewhere it's mixed out there.
So, from prefab, I'm going to, because we are talking about, just in this past few weeks, there are several firms, companies that we are talking about modular or prefab construction in healthcare, especially where there's repetitive work, and hospitality is somewhat unique. But schools, and I'm seeing, just going by the chat window, several questions on schools. I presume plenty of young parents and curious, because this ties back to, can we bring modularity into schools? And one is of course the brick and mortar piece. How does that change the culture or the way we design our schools? Upali, I'm looking towards you. Just you're smiling. I thought you're ready to take this one on.
I smile all the time, Gaurav. That is no indicator. No, I was smiling because I think learning environments will actually see the most significant change, both schools and universities, college campuses. I think we will see a very significant change there. Again, this is not a new idea. We have been talking about flipping the classroom for a while now. Some universities had experimented with the idea that you hear your lectures at home and you come to the university to work with your friends to do the actual assignments. And that was a flipped paradigm. So when I just need to listen, and right now you can see that when kids are doing school from home, there is some advantage to being able to just hear a lecture online individually, where you're not distracted by others. But then the moment you're starting to think about it, or when you have questions and you need to interact, you need to be there. I personally think that learning environments, schools, colleges, that's where innovation is needed. That's where innovation is hugely overdue. And that's where we will start seeing a very significant change. What that looks like, I think we're just absorbing. There's something that I can't remember who it was. I heard this from a colleague of mine, and I thought it was very powerful, that a lot of the large corporations are calling this phase the absorption phase. That you have to really stop and absorb, because so much is happening at the same time before you start running and responding. And I think that's really important, that for schools, we have this time to really rethink, how are you going to come back in a safe way? And how do we use this opportunity not just to fight the virus, but for a lot of the other issues that we anyways needed to innovate for in our learning environments?
Then let me ask you, while you were talking, I read one comment from Verma. It means that every home has a workplace and all such units are there collectively form. I'm just reading between the lines, but between a campus. Does it mean with all of us working from home and a juxtaposition with our physical workspaces, but when you think about it, a workspace is a collection of smaller units. Are we talking onto something, creating a larger campus? Does it change what we typically know as a campus?
Yeah, I would love to hear Jairam and Tushar's thoughts. I think from my perspective, definitely. I think we are seeing this blurring of sectors that is very significant. Like more mixed-use typologies coming up, more blurring of sectors coming up, more really urban planning of your neighborhoods getting a lot of emphasis. And that's where some of those more long-term changes are coming up. So a framework we've been using and find very helpful is to think about day 0, which is where we are today, day 1, which is that moment of re-entry, day X, what it's going to look like from 3 to 6 months, and then day XX, which is foreseeing 3 to 5 years ahead and what that looks like. And for each typology, like residential, huge implications. Open office considerations just came to the apartment type. And when I have to work at home more consistently, then do I have the right kind of apartments to do it? If I have to learn consistently, what is it going to mean? So for the design field, this is a tremendous opportunity to really rethink. And if we can rethink and then say, really do it in a way that we can construct rapidly, precisely, productively, and really meet our physical and psychological needs together, that's a huge opportunity.
Interesting. Jairam, do you have anything that you want to comment on this?
I agree with Upali. I think that's going to be the challenge. Schools, they have been a challenge right from the beginning, and with all this physical distancing norms and all the stuff that's coming around, I think every parent is concerned about when the schools open, how are we going to see that? It's easy to dictate what we're talking about in office space. In fact, my 14-year-old son has been undergoing these classes last 1.5 months. He's been sitting at home and listening to all the Zoom lectures. So is this the future that we are looking at? Probably, I don't know, but it really, the interaction that they get by mixing with the people, at that level that happens at school, I think is paramount. School is not just about learning physics, chemistry, biology. It's all about learning to, live with the people, make friends, play games. It's more a holistic development that we are looking at. So I think it's still, we are still learning it. And probably Upali will tell me how research is going to head to. But one thing is for sure, we all need larger homes. We all need good homes, well-equipped homes with perfect internet and all other facilities so that, we're able to run an office from home. I think I don't think everybody can do that. And that is a big ask from designers. Or creatively, you can make that available for us at the most optimized cost.
Gaurav, I would like to add one thing. I think we are very closer to our the time. But, one opportunity which everybody has to see in India perspective, we have 80%, like 70% India is like villages, okay? Earlier, the better resources were not there. So people were coming out of the villages and, to cities to learn even English, learn even small courses, okay? Today, now India has adapted, where the digital Geo has already given good networks, and then the technology has given us experimentation time where, the lot of villages school will connect you to very good content, good classes. I think countrywide, and I'm seeing this change happening. I think this is an opportunity also, and I'm sure that a lot of people will get benefited post that. So what Upali has said that go home, have a study about the subject, and come and collaborate with your peer group. I think that's an amazing concept, and it will be happening in all business schools also as well.
I have to ask, we're talking about education. We'll be, pretty much all of us are connected with capital investments in infrastructure and talking about schools. Ala Hassan asks from Dubai, will it reduce the tuition fee?
I think larger, in role, if you see that when the physical infrastructure will be less, more a digital infrastructure, tuition fees will be reduced. And my view is, I'm not an education expert, but I see there will be large number of people can take the same content compared to the earlier time. Earlier, the 100 people are sitting in a classroom and they are paying to you. But now, today, your content or your education is sold to 1,000 people without even coming to the physical premises. I'm sure there should be a reduction in the cost.
Well, go ahead, Upali.
I just wanted to echo Tushar's point, because those massive online courses have been there for a while. But now I think they'll get much more traction. It's the same thing with telehealth, right? We couldn't get innovation in telehealth for 2 decades. And then in 3 weeks, everyone figured out how to do telehealth.
Yes.
Right? And now those things that have transferred and things that have moved to telehealth, a lot of that is not coming back. It's going to stay in that platform. So there is that reshifting of real estate that's going to happen. That new real estate purposes, I think, will emerge. And it's something for us to think through.
Okay, well, last question, 30 seconds, fire round. What should be the takeaway in your context? Tushar, I'll start with you. 30 seconds.
I think I should come in last, but let me just say, I think we have to be prepared for the new normal, Gaurav, and as Jairam has said about, the way thinking changing. I think I will take away 3 things: the empathy, evidence, and the most important is connect. I think we should connect better, and when we connect, we innovate. When we innovate, we come with new solutions. I think these are the 3 lines with a good takeaway for me.
Great, well said. Jairam.
I think, while Tushar has captured most of the points that I had in mind, I think I would like to say something different. Is the key takeaway here, which we are experiencing in the situation, is the power of giving. Yep. You know, I think it has made us all look inward, not trying to be, I know, maybe you can call it as more spiritual, look inward, search for solutions, reflect upon our actions, your inabilities, living in an uncertain world, you know, surprise, frustration, and things like that. So I'm telling you, it's the power of giving. There's no substitute to that. I think we all have to really embrace that.
Upali, well said, Jairam. I've never seen the human side of you when I sit across with you.
Sometimes.
I would echo that. I think the power of giving, the power of questioning and really reflecting deeply. I think that these are opportunities that we have to think and we have to ask the right questions. There is so much information. If we follow the answers, we'll get lost. But if you're asking the right questions, then I think we will be able to shape this path, because the path as it exists, it hasn't been ever traversed before. So we have to be very careful that we're asking the right questions and then doing this journey. One of the things that really stuck in this discussion with me was when both Jairam and Tushar talked about relationships. And I think one big takeaway for me is relationships are probably what build the most resilience.
Well, thank you so much, all of you. We just closed the hour and a half. We are in this together, and thank you, Upali, for a great wrap up. And I'd like to acknowledge all the behind the scenes team in all our respective firms, and thanks SKB and Tushar for letting us talk. And lastly, for everybody who's out there, couldn't express more gratitude. Please stay safe, keep washing hands, and my shout out to all the frontline workers out there so that we can remain indoors. Please respect that, stay indoors, keep washing hands. Things are going to open up, but like Upali said, for me, my mantra is, earlier I was thinking about my health, now I'm responsible for yours. Thank you so much once again. Please have a good rest of the day and have a pleasant weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you everyone for coming on this panel. And I would like to say to all attendees that stay connected with WorkPlace Trends. Follow us on LinkedIn page. You will get all the reports, all the recordings and upcoming seminars. Tomorrow we have a very interesting webinar with Naveen Jindal and Shalu Jindal about how you lead in the crisis. A leader who has 36,000 people on board, how he manages, pool, how he manages, experiences and, give the best to the society. I look forward to see you tomorrow, 12 o'clock. And we will like to be connected with you. Follow us on LinkedIn page. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Upali. Thank you, Jairam. Thank you very much.
Thanks.